Happy Monday, Daily Dosers. Chris here. It starts in that type of fashion where already you know something's up. Something's going to happen. Jesus leaves 9 of the disciples and he takes Peter, James, and John. He's done this a couple times. He'll take him in the last night of his freedom before the cross. He'll take him alone into the garden further from the disciples. He took them already previously into the home where a 12-year-old girl had died, and then he raised her back to life again. And I don't know why he picks these 3. I mean, if you want to pick 3 guys to show them something special, you've got 12. Put it in a 4-team rotation. Let everyone have a turn. Some people say they're the first pick. Maybe they're more special to Jesus. Maybe. I like to think these are the 3 he couldn't trust back at camp without him. That's why he always took him. Maybe that gives a guy like me hope. But whatever. He leaves the disciples, he takes 3, and he heads up a mountain. You may have heard this story, but let me read it and put this together. I just want to give you a Jesus encouragement on a Monday. So he took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. He actually had a physical change. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. And there appeared before him Elijah and Moses, who were talking with him. Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it's good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." See, he didn't know what to say. He was so frightened. Then a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and a voice came from within the cloud saying, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." And then suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept this matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead could possibly mean. I love this story. I love this story, not because it's bizarre. I love this story, not just because he takes the 3, but he gets up to the mountain and he physically changes. When Matthew and Luke record this, they say his face was like the sun. Luke says as if lightning was shooting out from him. Mark said it was beyond the best bleach, probably the worst of all the adjectives and descriptors. But, he's writing. He's got this thing going down. And there appears Moses and Elijah, arguably, some of the 2 greatest figures of the Old Testament. The one that gave you the law, the commandments, the first 5 books of the Bible, and the greatest of the prophets. The law and the prophets show up to encourage Jesus because he just mentioned he's going to Jerusalem. And in this show, it's Peter that interrupts and goes, "Rabbi," which is simply teacher. "You guys need tents? We'll make one for each of you." And God shows up in a cloud and said, "Show's over. You just blew whatever was going on. This one's my son. You listen to him." And when the cloud was gone, it was just Jesus. Probably looking right at Peter like, "Thanks a lot, buddy. You blew the whole trip." And they headed back down the mountain. Why I wanted to give you this scene on a Monday is because what we taught this weekend. Because Revelation 19 shows us a Jesus who he is in heaven. Shows us a Jesus that shows up as a warrior on a white horse, with eyes like fire, with many crowns, with a name written on him that no one can understand but he himself. You do not understand Jesus. As much as you fathom Jesus, he is unfathomable. As much as you think you can define Jesus, he is undefinable. We've been given enough to know to give our allegiance because his name is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And this is Jesus. I think why I wanted to marry these 2 together was to once again break what I held for almost 20 years. Because I grew up in a little Texas church where I had to color Jesus on a weekly basis. And the guy that wore the white dress and the red sash and carried little lambs and walked around and he multiplied lunch boxes. And what I failed to understand is that's not your God. What I failed to understand is what I just read from you from Mark chapter 9. The miracle is that the God of heaven, the very word that spoke things into being, became flesh and appeared as a man for 30 years. That was the miracle. And for a moment on the mountaintop, the miracle is paused and the real Jesus, who he is, who he has been, and who he will be forever, bust out through his skin. And God said, "This is my son. This is who you listen to. You put a lot of things up on this mountaintop, but there's only one. Oh, church, may I remind you today, I'm glad we have Sunday school, but the Jesus who is and was is Revelation 19, is Mark chapter 9. And this is the King of kings and Lord of lords. And this is worthy of our obedience, our sacrifice, and our service today. This is a glimpse still of an unfathomable, undescribable God. Happy Monday.